there, welcome to my mini Lightroom tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm just going to quickly walk you through how I edit my photos from the time that I import them into the Lightroom app and then to the time that I'm ready to export them to get onto my Instagram feed or into my planning app or wherever they go after you're done editing. Again, this is very quick with some of my quick tips and tricks when I initially start to edit. If you're viewing this video as a part of my Instagram course, remember you have 3 presets in your starter pack to get started, and you can slap those on and then use some of these techniques as well. Enjoy!
Okay, here we are with the Lightroom mobile app opened up. You can see I'm in the November 2020 album that I've created on this app. If we go back at the top left corner and hit that little arrow, you can see this is the home page for the Lightroom mobile app, and I'm going to go back into my November 2020 album. And then I have all the photos I want in here, but if we want to add, we go down to that bottom right corner and hit the photo or the picture of the photo with the plus sign. And then we want to select from camera roll if that's where you're getting your photos from, and it'll open up your camera roll and you can select as many as you want to throw in there. You can also take photos with that camera picture as long as your camera is enabled, which mine is not, but I don't use my phone for my pictures in Lightroom. So I'm going to find a photo to edit for you, and I'm going to match it to basically what my color tones on my Instagram profile typically are, like the greens and the whites. So I'm going to open up this photo. Now here's what I want it to look like. So just for reference, this is what we're going to be referencing as we edit, so you can kind of see what I shoot for and then how I get there. So the first thing I do is I open up the light area. I always mess with my light because to me, that's the first thing to look at before color. So we can look at this photo and see there's not too many crazy shadows. The lighting was pretty good here with the shade, but I do have some. So I just kind of take note of the shadows and the colors and then go from there. So when we go into the lighting, we're going to mess with the exposure. So you can see I am putting it up a little bit, brightening up my face, making sure I can see everything I want to see without blowing anything out. I also like to mess around with the contrast just a tad to heighten those colors and the difference between them. I don't want to go too much because look, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, I just like to do a little bit. I don't like to see the red in my face too much. All right. Then I'm going to look at the highlights. Highlights are very interesting. I always stress that you use caution with highlights because you don't want to blow anything out again. That's crazy. So you can see if I go too much, my shirt gets really, really bright. So I don't want to do that. And if I go too low, everything seems kind of hazy. So you just want to be careful. I like to go a little bit lower. That's my safety zone. Same thing with shadows. It's kind of the opposite of the highlights. Shadows, if you go really, really high, you eliminate your shadows. If you go really, really low, you increase them. But if you go low, you kind of bring up that contrast. If you go too high, it's more hazy. For whites, if I have whites in a photo that are really bright, like my shirt, I don't do too much because I don't want to blow that shirt out. Same thing with the highlights. Again, if we look at that and how that blows that out, yeah, not so much. And then for the blacks, I like to increase this a little bit because I do like, again, that contrast. I mean decrease it. If you go too high, it kind of works the same as the shadows. So I'm going to go a little bit low, and there's my lighting for now. I can always come back and change it. We're going to go into colors, and I'm first going to mess around with the temp. So the temperature, I want it to be a little bit warmer. I tend to like warmer photos, and it brings up the oranges and the yellows and the golds. I'm not going to mess around with the tint. I hardly do that unless there's like a really severe lighting issue with pink or green lighting. So I'm going to go into colors. Sorry, you didn't see that. Let me go back. I'm going to go into mix. That's where I'm going to really play around with my colors. And I like the Lightroom mobile app because it makes it easy. First thing I'm going to do is go into yellows, and I like to take my yellows pretty much all the way down. And just for reference, there you go. So if we play around with the temperature again really fast, you can see I took my yellows down, but my temperature is still up. So I like to keep that in mind. Okay, and then I'm going to go into blues, and I like to mess around with those a little bit. As soon as you bring down the yellows, to me, the blues stand out, so I always bring those down. Then we're going to go into greens. I like to play around with the hues. If I have a lot of greens, I first play around and see, do I want more like of a teal, or do I want to bring it down and go more into the yellow tones of the greens? I personally like the yellow Jurassic Park kind of look, but I also take down the saturation of those a little bit as well. And now I'm going to go into the blues. Oops. Okay, a little glitch. Sorry, the blues. I'm going to bring those back a little. It looks too pale. Bring the yellows back a little to get more color in there. So this is just me playing around, guys. And then I bring up the oranges. Oranges to me personally are very important because those are what bring out my skin tone. Everybody's skin tone is going to be different. Some have more reds, some are more yellows, some are more gold. It just depends. But for me, that's what I use. And then I'm going to bring up the reds to see if we can see my lips a little bit more. And then my boots as well because they're super cute. So for reference, here is the picture I'm looking for. I'm not quite there yet. So I'm looking and I'm seeing the greens look a lot different. Also, there's probably more blue in that picture that I'm referencing. So we'll go back into lighting first. I'm going to bring down that exposure because there's also a lot more shadows in the other picture. And then we're going to play around more with color. So let's go into those greens. Bring them down even more, and already I'm seeing more similarities. And then we'll take it down the hue into more yellows, just a tad. And okay, so, oops, sorry, quick slide. I'm going to go into my lighting, and I'm going to take down those shadows even more. Create more contrast, take down the blacks a little bit more, and then I will go into, let's see, I want to crop it real quick because I feel like getting it closer will be better. So for Instagram, I like to use that 4x5. That tends to be my sweet spot for cropping. You can get the whole photo in there still. 8.5 by 11 typically might stay in. I'm not sure. I think it's too narrow, and so is 2x3 if you look at how narrow that is. So we're going to go with the 4x5. Now, talking about where to position your focus point, if you want it in the center, if you want it further down, or if you want it really up at the top, it's really up to you and what's going to look good on your feed. You'll notice mine changes. Typically, I don't like to have my head really close to the top. I like to give myself, no matter what, some good headroom. But for here, we'll just say I'm going to stay in the center. You can see if I were to crop in, I'd be a lot closer. Obviously, I don't really want that for this picture. I like the foliage in the background. So I'm happy with that. You can also change the angle down at the bottom. If that was bugging you, the place where the bricks on the ground didn't quite match up, you can change that. Just be careful that you're not looking like you're leaning. I kind of look like I'm leaning. Actually, it's not too noticeable, but if we're referencing, they look pretty close. I might change these colors just a little, bring in those blues a little bit more. I'm thinking the temperature is actually needs to come down a little bit, so we'll bring that down and we'll take a look. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So there you go. All right, thank you so much.
All right, friends, thank you so much for watching the tutorial. Again, if you have any questions, my email is on the last slide of the presentation in the original course. I look forward to seeing all of your beautiful photos on Instagram, and remember to have fun when you're planning and when you're editing, and really just get creative because it's your Instagram feed. It's how you want your colors to show, so do with it what you will. Have a great one.